If you're just starting with Google Analytics 4, this video is exactly what you need. I will show you how to get started with GA4, I will show you the interface, the reports, and how to launch your first setup. Google Analytics is still under very heavy development. I mean, this video is already probably like the third version of this tutorial, but Google just keeps changing things and I try to keep it updated. In this tutorial, I will show you not only the overview of the platform, but I will also share a lot of tips along the way. So stay tuned and let's dive in. To get started with Google Analytics, you can go to the official Google Marketing Platform website. You can see the URL right here, or you can just go to Google search and enter Google Analytics, and then the top result will be Google Analytics, or you can just go to analytics.google.com. If you have never worked with Google Analytics before, you will be asked to create a new account. The window might look something like this, but keep in mind that Google Analytics is still under heavy development, so maybe when you watch this video, something will look different. So don't panic and still try to navigate the interface and find what you need. Also, if you spot some big differences, then take a look at the description of this video. I might have some updates right there. Anyway, when you go to analytics.google.com and you want to create an account, then you have to enter the account name. This is the name of the company. If you're working at an agency and you manage multiple clients, I would highly recommend that each client would have a separate account. Don't store all client properties under your agency account, because in the long run, that might cause some management problems. And if you already have at least one Google Analytics 4 property or account, in that case, you should go to the admin section and then click create account if you want to create an account for new business, or if you already have an account, then you can click create property, because property is the place where you will store your data. It's like a bucket, and one property might be for one website, or if you want, it is also possible to store data of multiple websites in the same property, as long as those websites are logically connected. In other words, they are part of the same user journey. So in this case, let's say that I want to create a new account for a company. So I will click create account and it will still open the same window that you saw before. Here, let's say that I will enter Analytics Mania demo. Then you can scroll down, check what kind of data sharing settings do you want to include and click next. Then it's time for the property. So as I've said, property is like a bucket where you store your data. You might create one property for one website, or if you want, you can include multiple websites and mobile apps if they make sense and if they are connected in a single property. In this case, I will enter Analytics Mania demo property, then select the reporting time zone. If your business operates across the globe, then you could, for example, select the time zone of headquarters or maybe something else. Or let's say another good idea could be that you can select the same time zone that your backend system or CRM is using. That way, the data will match better between Google Analytics and your backend system. Then select the currency in which your business operates and then click next. Here you should answer several questions. For example, what is the industry of your company? What is the business size? And then click next. And here you have to select business objectives. Your choices here will define what kind of reports will you see in the section of standard reports of GA4. For example, if you select these three objectives right here, it will unlock 3 sets of reports right here. If you want, you can select all of these top 4 choices, or you can select a standard set of reports, which is also known as baseline. So you can select either these or this. This option right here is related to an older set of reports that were available in GA4 for the first several years. So if you're reading Google Analytics 4 tutorials online, or maybe viewing older videos, those tutorials will be showing the baseline reports. So just to keep this learning process a bit more streamlined, let's select right now this option. But in the future, once you get more familiar with GA4, then feel free to select any of these top options as well. Let's click create, then agree with terms of service, and then Google Analytics will ask you to start collecting data, and that can be done by creating data streams. To understand what data streams are, let's take a look at the structure of the account. First, to get access to any Google product, you must have a Google account. That is your Google address. For example, johndoe@gmail.com. You use it to log into your Gmail, to your Google Ads, to Google Analytics, and so on. Then, when you go to analytics.google.com, you are asked to create a Google Analytics account. You can have multiple accounts. So for every business, there can be a separate Google account. Within an account, you have properties. So properties are buckets where you store your data about a website, about mobile app, or it might be a combination of mobile and app data. And inside each property, you can have data streams. And there are 3 types of data streams: website, Android, and iOS. In this tutorial, I will be focusing on website. So basically, once you create a data stream, you will get a unique measurement ID, or also known as tracking ID. And then by knowing your measurement ID, you will be able to install Google Analytics on your website and send data from your website to Google Analytics. So in this case, I would choose the web, but we will come back to data streams a bit later. First, I want to show you what is in general available in the admin panel of Google Analytics 4. So for now, let's click skip for now. But in the future, when you will be creating new properties, you don't need to click skip now, then just create data streams and install Google Analytics on your website. But again, within the boundaries of this tutorial, let's click skip for now. Then click continue to home, and congratulations. Now you have created a Google Analytics 4 property. So let me give you a quick tour of what is available in the admin panel, because there are a lot of settings there. So in the bottom left corner, click admin. And here you will see 2 columns. One is the account column. So here are the settings of your account. Here you can manage things such as user access. And then most of the settings are in the property column. I will not dive deep into every setting because then the length of this tutorial would grow immensely, but I just want to show you several things. So first of all, if you are new to Google Analytics 4, then Setup Assistant might be helpful for you because it is kind of like a checklist of what can you implement with Google Analytics 4. Of course, these are not all things, but these are the main things. So for example, here it talks about data collection, which means that you would need to add Google Analytics tracking code to your site. Then there are some additional settings like conversions, audiences, then you can link Google Analytics to Google Ads, and then there are several additional advanced settings. Then there are property settings. So here you can delete the property, you can change certain settings, you can rename the property. Then you can manage who has access to this particular property. Then we have data streams, but we will come back here a bit later. Then in this section, you will see what kind of events have you already sent to Google Analytics 4. In fact, let me show you how that section looks with real data. And that can be done by using the official Google Analytics 4 demo property. So below this video, I will post a link. And once you click it, you will need to scroll down and choose the Google Analytics 4 property, Merchandise Store. Click that link, and then you will get access to the demo property. That demo property will look something like this. It will say Google Merchandise Store. So in that property, let's go to the events. And here you will see all the events that were tracked recently. And if I had enough permissions, I could mark some of these events as conversions, because conversions in Google Analytics are the most important events. For example, when someone submits a form, or when someone makes a purchase, or maybe when someone downloads some important file or something like that. Then we have conversions. So here are those more important events. In this property, these are marked as conversions. Then there are audiences. So for example, you can create an audience that includes people who have seen a product, added it to a cart, but did not purchase. And then you could later connect Google Analytics to Google Ads and show ads to those people who added product to a cart, but did not purchase. Then there are custom definitions. Here you can create things such as custom dimensions and custom metrics. Later in this tutorial, I will show you one example of how to create a custom dimension. Basically, it is a certain parameter that you want to see in your reports. For example, if you send a form submission event and you're also sending the form name, you would then need to create a custom dimension for that form name so that you would later be able to see the form name in your Google Analytics reports. Then we have data settings, but for that I will go back to my own property. And here we have several settings. Here, every time you create a new property, in most cases, you will need to go to data collection. So first, let's start with data collection. Here you can enable Google Signals, but be careful before you do that. If you don't plan to link Google Analytics 4 with Google Ads, and you don't plan to use remarketing audiences, and you don't care much about the demographic data, for example, gender statistics of your visitors or their interests, then I would highly recommend not enabling Google Signals. Otherwise, you might deal with a thing called thresholding. In a nutshell, thresholding will start hiding certain rows in your reports to increase the privacy of the visitors. So if you want to learn more about that, I will post a link to it below the video. But in general, usually for small businesses, Google Signals is not a needed feature. If you want, you can also investigate other features right here, but for sake of time saving, I will go to the data retention. So every time you create a new GA4 property, in most cases, you will need to switch data retention from 2 months to 14 months. If you keep the option to 2 months, you will be able to analyze the data only of the last 2 months in the Explore section right here. And most businesses don't want that. So it's very likely that you will want to change this to 14 months. Then there are data filters that is related to internal traffic. If you want to learn more about that, there is another link in the description of this video. And then there are channel groups, but this feature goes beyond the level of the beginner Google Analytics 4 user. So I will not explain this particular feature in this tutorial. Then we have data import, but that goes a bit too advanced. If you want to learn more about that, do your own investigation. Then reporting identity. For now, you should keep the settings as they are. The same applies to attribution settings. Also, if you want to see what other users of this property have changed in the property settings, then you can look right here by going to property change history. If you want to delete some data, because maybe it was accidentally collected, you can take a look at the data deletion request. This feature is much more powerful than it was in the previous Google Analytics version, but it's still not perfect. There are some situations where you cannot delete certain data. But again, if you find yourself in a situation where you want to delete some data, then investigate this feature. And then the debug view. So here you will be spending a lot of time if you work with the implementation of Google Analytics. And later in this video, we are going to use this. Then there is a bunch of tools and platforms that you can link and integrate with Google Analytics. For example, you can link Google Search Console or Google Ads or BigQuery. So if you use any of these tools, then it might make sense for you to integrate them with Google Analytics. So this was a brief overview of the admin settings. And now let's go to the next part, which is data streams. It is necessary for you to create data stream if you want to install Google Analytics. So go here. As I have said before, in this tutorial, we will be focusing on web tracking. That's why choose the web platform. And here you have to enter the URL of your site, the name of the stream, and there are some additional settings. So in most cases, you will need to have just one web data stream in a property. Even if you plan to track multiple websites that are on different domains, but you plan to track that with a single property, it is still enough to have one data stream. And in this case, you can enter any of those domains right here. In my case, I will be working with a test website, so I will enter that domain, and here you can enter, for example, website or something like that. This is for internal use anyway. Then Google Analytics 4 offers a set of automatic event tracking features. Google Analytics is now capable of tracking not only page views, but some additional events as well. And as the time goes by, the list of events grows. Right now, we see things such as scroll tracking. So if someone scrolls below the 90% of the page height, then it will track a scroll event. Then outbound click. So if someone on your site clicks a link that redirects visitors to some third-party websites, then this event will be tracked. Then if you have a site search feature and a visitor enters some keyword and sees the search results, Google Analytics will track that as an event as well. Then if you have some embedded YouTube video players on your site and visitors view them, you can track the engagement of those players, but this applies only to embedded YouTube video players. Then if people can click on links and download, let's say PDF files or maybe Word or Excel files, then this event will track that. And then there are form interactions. But again, if you're watching this video in the future, there is a very high chance that more events will eventually appear here. Now, speaking of these events, most of them are okay, but form interactions personally are a feature that I would recommend disabling because it tracks forms very inaccurately. It fires way too often, or in some cases, it will not fire when the form is submitted. So I would recommend disabling this feature. So click this gear icon right here and disable form interactions. Click Save, and then click Create Stream. Once you create the data stream, Google Analytics will ask you to install the Google tag, or it also might be known as G tag, or basically just native Google Analytics tracking code. So it's your choice how you want to call this. And there are several options. So if you plan to use this kind of tracking code where the developers will need to add it to the site and all other event tracking will be handled by developers as well, then install manually option might work for you, where basically you will need to send this code to your developer and he or she will install that directly in the source code of the website. If you are using some popular content management system, then you can switch here and you can see some options right here, but the list is fairly short and there are many more CMSs in the market. So it's very likely that you will still need to use the install manually option, or maybe there is some native integration of Google Analytics 4 in that content management system, and you just might need to Google the instructions of how to add GA4 to that particular system. In this tutorial, I will be using Google Tag Manager because that is my preferred way of how to manage tracking codes, and later in this video, I will show you how to do that. So for now, let's close this window right here. And here, what is important for us, at least what will be important for us later, is this measurement ID. So we will use this in Google Tag Manager. Then when it comes to other settings available here, we have modify events feature, but this goes out of scope of this video. If you want to learn more about that, I will post a link to the description of this video. When it comes to beginners of Google Analytics 4, here are some of the things that I would like to mention in this video. So you will occasionally go to the configure tag settings section right here, because that is where you configure things such as cross-domain tracking or internal traffic or unwanted referrals or something else. So click here, and here you will see several options, but there are actually more. So click show all. In this situation, I would like to mention several things. So first of all, if you are tracking multiple domains, and I mean different domains, for example, domain1.com and domain2.com, and they are both tracked in the same property and they are part of the same user journey, then you will need to go to configure your domains and enter, let's say, domain1.com and domain2.com. In that case, when people navigate between these two domains by clicking links, for example, a link on domain 1 and then that link redirects to the domain 2, in this case, Google Analytics will handle this with cross-domain tracking settings, and your user data and user counts will be more accurate. Then another thing which is worth mentioning is defining internal traffic. So by default, Google Analytics will track your own events as well, and it will treat you as a regular visitor. But if you are browsing your site often, your events will pollute the reports. So if you want to avoid that, I would recommend going to define internal traffic, then creating a new rule. And here you should enter your own IP address and also IP addresses of your coworkers right here. So here, for example, you can select IP address equals and then enter your address. If you don't know what your address is, then click this link. If you want to include multiple addresses, you can add them as separate conditions, or if you know what regular expression is, then you can add some more complex conditions here. So if you enter IP addresses of all your coworkers right here, then you will need to go to admin, data settings, data filters, and then click on the internal traffic filter and set it to active. From that moment, your internal traffic will be excluded from the GA4 reports. All right, so let me close this because I just wanted to show you this thing. Then another thing that you might want to consider is unwanted referrals. This feature is useful if your user journey looks something like this. Let's say that a visitor comes to your website, then starts the payment process, goes to paypal.com, and then after a successful purchase is redirected back to your site. And also, let's say that for some reason the visitor stays on paypal.com long enough so that Google Analytics session expires, and then that visitor goes back to your thank you page. So by default, in this kind of situation, Google Analytics 4 will start here a new session and the traffic source will be paypal.com. But if you don't want that, then you can include this paypal.com as an unwanted referral in Google Analytics 4. And if you have more payment gateways where people can come to your site from, say, paypal.com or stripe.com or something like that, then you should include all those domains as unwanted referrals. To do that, you should click here and then enter, let's say, paypal.com, then add another referral domain, which might be stripe.com or something like that, depending on what are you using on your website. So let's go back. The list of these settings might change in the future, but the ones that I mentioned are the most important. However, if you want to learn more about the settings, then you can take a look at my full Google Analytics 4 course, and I will post a link to it below the video. All right, so now let's take a look at some reports with real data, and we will do that with a demo property. And after that, I will show how to install Google Analytics 4 and how to send some data and how to check that data in GA4. So let's start with the standard reports. I will go to the official demo account, and here on the sidebar we have home. This is like a little dashboard. Also, you can see some recently accessed sections, which might be useful and save you several clicks in the future, but that is pretty much it. Personally, I don't use this very often. Instead, you can go to reports. If you previously selected the baseline reports when Google asked you about your business objectives, then the sidebar will look something like this. Here you will have acquisition, engagement, and monetization. You can click here and then see some reports. Also, this is the report snapshot. It's again like a little dashboard, but when it comes to standard reports, I would say that I mostly spend my time in actual detailed reports, not in this snapshot. If you want to see the real-time data of what has been happening on your site for the last 30 minutes, then you can go to real-time. Here you can see a map and some additional data about what is happening on your site. For example, what kind of events are tracked. You can click on those events, for example, on page view, and then it will load the parameters that were sent together with that event. If you want, for example, to see where those page views are happening, you should be looking for a page location parameter. So if you cannot see it right here, go to the next page, and here is page location. You can click it, and here are some of the URLs. Now let's take a look at some standard reports. So first of all, you might be wondering, where are your visitors coming from? That's where you will need to use the acquisition section. So click here, go to overview, and this is another kind of like a dashboard, but if you want to see more details, you can click the link and then it will open a table, which is also known as the detail report. Then there is user acquisition. So this report shows you the first traffic source from where the visitor landed on your site for the first time. The default dimension is default channel group, but if you want, you can switch to user source medium, and it will show us, for example, that a lot of people are coming from Google Organic, some paid advertising, and so on. But keep in mind that this is showing only the traffic source of the first session. So if on the second session the visitor comes from your email marketing campaign, that session will still be displayed, for example, as Google Organic, if the first session came from Google Organic. So if you want to see traffic sources of each session individually, you need to select Traffic Acquisition Report. Here, the dimension names start with session. So you have session default channel group, or if you want to see more detailed view, you can select session source medium. You can also add one more column by clicking this plus, and by doing so, you will add a secondary dimension because this is the dimension and these are metrics. So let's add another dimension, which is session campaign. So go to traffic source and session campaign. And now I can see session source, session medium, and session campaign. Also, I can see how many users I got, sessions, and then I can scroll horizontally to see how much revenue did I get, how many conversions did I get. If I want to narrow down just to a particular conversion, then I can click here and select, for example, purchase. Then the numbers will change and I can see how many purchases did I get from each traffic source. If you want, you can also customize the report. For example, you can add some additional dimensions here, or maybe add or remove certain metrics, but I cannot do that in this property because I don't have enough permissions. However, you will be able to do that in your own property. So let me just quickly show you where can you do that. Let's go to reports. And if in the report you see a pencil icon, this means that you can customize this report. For example, if I go to acquisition and traffic acquisition, here I can click the pencil and then click on dimensions and decide what kind of dimensions can I have and what can I add additionally. So I can click here to add more dimensions. The same applies to metrics, for example. I can add something additionally. One of the examples could be session conversion rate. And once you do that, once you do some changes, you can click apply and then click save and save changes either to a new report or a current report. Anyway, that was a little side note. Now let's go back to the demo property. So when it comes to traffic acquisition, these are the main reports. And based on what I've seen how people are using, you will be spending most of your time in the traffic acquisition report. Unless, of course, you chose some other business objectives and your reports will look something different. But I think that report will still be called traffic acquisition or something similar. Now, engagement. So here I can see what are the top events. Of course, there is some overview, but I'm skipping that. Here you can see what kind of events were tracked. Some of them are coming from enhanced measurement, for example, scroll. Some of them are automatically tracked by GA4, but they're not coming from enhanced measurement. That includes first visit or session start or user engagement. And here you have some metrics. Then we have conversions. So these are the events that are tracked as conversions. Although this property is not configured very well because they are also tracking page view as a conversion, which is definitely not what you want to do in your property. Then pages and screens. Here you can see your top pages and you can see how many times they were viewed, how many users viewed, and so on. By default, at least in this case, in this property, we see the page title as the dimension, but you can change this to, let's say, page path, which in my opinion makes more sense. So this is the home page, and these are some of the other pages that were visited by the users in a particular time period. Again, if you have enough permissions, you might want to edit this report and add some additional dimensions that you need, only if you see the pencil icon at the top right corner. Then we have the landing page report. So these are the pages where the sessions started, but there are some technical nuances. So in your properties, you will probably also see a lot of not set or empty rows. So in this case, that's the reality of at least how right now Google Analytics 4 is handling the data. So in general, there are various reasons why this might happen. For example, you might want to increase the default duration of your session from 30 minutes to something else, maybe 4 hours, 5 hours. That would reduce the number of not set. Then we have the monetization reports. In this case, since I'm focusing on website tracking, I will look at the e-commerce purchases. So if you have implemented e-commerce tracking, and this must be done by you because Google Analytics 4 or previous versions, they cannot do that by default. So once you or your developers start sending e-commerce data, you will be able to see what kind of products are added to cart, how many times were they viewed, what is the item revenue. Also, in this case, it looks like Google Analytics Merchandise Store has some technical problems because they are also sending sometimes an empty item name in certain cases, but this would require more thorough audit. But in general, this is not what you should expect to see in your reports. So something technically is wrong in this property. Also, if you want, you can add a secondary dimension, or you can change the primary dimension, let's say to item ID or item brand, or maybe you will have some other values in these dimensions. That way you can see which products are performing better. Then there is also retention section of the report. but based on the limitation of web tracking and cookies and so on, I personally don't use this feature because I don't trust that part of data that much. So I will not be covering retention in this tutorial. Then we have a bunch of reports about demographics and tech. So you can click here, and then you have either overview or demographic details. So let's switch directly to demographic details. Here you can see your data based on countries, or you can select some other dimensions. Age, gender, and interests data is available only if you enable Google Signals. But as I've mentioned earlier in this tutorial, if you enable Google Signals, you will face another issue, which is called thresholding. And that is displayed with this exclamation mark here. So if you want to learn more about that, then take a look at the description of this video. But in general, thresholding just hides rows with small numbers. And as always, if you want, you can add a secondary dimension. There's also a search field right here. It is available in all detail or table reports, where you can add a certain word, and then Google Analytics will be looking for partial match. For example, here I can enter United, and then it will select several options. The tech reports work in a similar manner, except that the dimensions are different. So here we have things such as browser, device category. For example, you can click here and then you will see desktop, mobile, tablet. You can also switch to things such as operation system version. For example, here we will see the version. If we want to see the name, let's say OS. So these are the operating systems with versions. If you're looking at your data and you want to analyze only a subset of data, for example, you want to see how organic Google traffic performs on your site, then you can use a comparison feature right here. So you can click here and then include, let's say, a dimension where session source medium is Google Organic, and then click OK and apply. Then you can remove the all users. And now all these reports, as you switch between them, will be showing data from organic users. So for example, here I can go to pages, and these are the pages that were viewed from visitors who came from Google Organic Search. So I can click on, let's say, page title, and then I can see the data. I can see how many conversions I got and so on. If you want to switch back to all users, then you can remove this comparison and it will go back to what it used to be. Now let's take a look at more advanced features, which are called explorations, and they're available on the left sidebar by going to Explore. But personally, I would say that you will be spending a lot of time here because in very many cases, standard reports are not enough. Here are various analysis methods that you can use, but most often you will be using three, which are freeform, funnel exploration, and path exploration. In my full Google Analytics 4 course, I will be using these features a lot and I will be showing various use cases. But if you need just a quick overview, then let's take a look at them. So once you are in the Explore section, click freeform, and a sample report will look something like this. In fact, let me quickly create a new example. So I can click the plus here and add a new tab of freeform. You can add, at least right now, up to 10 tabs, and they can be using different exploration methods. So let's say that I want to see what were the top keywords that people entered on my site when they were using the site search. To do that, we can go to dimensions, click plus, and add a dimension which is called search term in the general section. So click this checkbox, then click import, and add it to the second column. You can either drag it or just double click the dimension and it will be added right here. Then in the values, I will add the event count because I want to see how many times each keyword was entered. And I can do that by dragging or double clicking the event count. But now the problem is that we have this empty row. This is happening because currently this report is including all events that were tracked by Google Analytics 4. That includes page views, purchase, and so on. But I want to narrow down just to the event that is related to site search. So to do that, I can drag the event name to the filters section. So I will drag it, and then I will set that the event name must exactly match, and then view search results, because this is the event that is automatically tracked by GA4. So click apply, and now I see the top keywords that people entering in my site search. Right now, the table is showing 10 results, but you can show more, for example, 100. And you can add more dimensions, for example, total users. That can be done by clicking this plus and then selecting one of the many metrics available right here. If you want, you can also narrow down your data by using segments. You can manage them by clicking the plus right here and selecting either user segment or session segment or event segment, and then adding certain conditions. For example, here we have several predefined segments. So let's take a look at one of them as example, which is mobile traffic. So I can click 3 dots here, edit, and then I see that this segment is including all users. So that is a user segment where device category exactly matches mobile. Also, it is possible to add certain sequences, for example, to include all users who did one step and then another. For example, added product to a cart and then purchased, or maybe something else like saw a banner and then added product to a cart. The next exploration technique is related to funnels. So let's add that one by clicking the plus icon here and then funnel exploration. And here you can add steps and see how people are dropping off at each step. So to do that, in the second column of the sidebar, you should click on the pencil in the steps section. And here you can add a particular step. For example, when someone views an item, then the next step is when someone adds product to a cart, then when someone begins checkout. By the way, all these events such as view item, add to cart, and begin checkout, they are configured on the site by developers or by analytics implementation specialists, or maybe there is a plugin on the website that is doing so. These events are not tracked automatically. So if you just created your new property and you implemented enhanced measurement, that is not enough to get this kind of data. This requires a more complicated setup that is called Google Analytics for e-commerce tracking. And then the last step, let's say, will be purchase. So I can just click purchase and then click apply. And here I can see how many people saw at least one product, and then 99% of them did not add the product to a cart. If you want, you can zoom in here a bit to see those columns a bit clearer. And here you can see the completion rate, the abandonments, and so on. And you can slice and dice this data as much as you want. You can add more steps. So this is much more powerful and convenient compared to the older versions of Google Analytics. And then finally, the third method that I wanted to share in this video is a path exploration. So here you can see how people were navigating on your website. The default here is by the event name. So you can see that the first event was session start, and then you can see that out of those people who started a session, this is how many sent a page view. So obviously this is a very big difference. So something probably is technically incorrect in the property, but in general, usually I check the pages, not the events. So you can click start over and then click on the starting point and then select page path. Then you can select, for example, homepage. And from here, you will see where people went next from the homepage. So again, something is incorrectly configured in Google Analytics 4. I mean, on the merchandise store. So we have a lot of not sets, but let's take a look at the second page. I mean, the second popular page. So that is sign in. Once I click here, I can see where the visitors went next. And another cool thing about this feature is that you can start over and do the reverse pathing, which is from the endpoint. So you can, for example, select the order confirmation page and then go backwards and see what people were doing before they made a purchase. So I can click here, then let's say select the event name, which is purchase. So I can use a search field and enter purchase. And then from here, I can select a different dimension, which is page path. And then I can go backwards and see what were people doing before that. This is also useful if, for example, you're tracking errors on the site. So you can include error as your ending point and then see what were people doing before they got an error. So that might uncover some things that could be fixed on a website. And then the final section of the sidebar is advertising. So you can go there And here you can see how different traffic channels are participating in the entire user journey. For example, you can go to conversion paths and see the top traffic sources and how people were visiting your site and what kind of traffic sources were participating in certain journeys. The report with default channel group does not tell us a lot, but if you change, for example, to medium, you might see some longer journeys where, for example, a visitor first was tracked when he or she came from a paid ad, and then the visitor several times came back to the site from organic search. And then next to each journey, you can see how long on average that journey was before the conversion happened. But again, in this case, it would make more sense if you selected not all conversions, but just one conversion and then analyzed it separately. Then you can also compare different attribution models, but that goes definitely out of scope of this tutorial, and this is far beyond the beginner level. All right, so once we got familiar with the interface of Google Analytics 4, now let's take a look at how can we install it and how can we send events from your website. Here I am in my own Google Analytics 4 property. Let's go to Admin, then Data Streams, and select Website Data Stream. From here, we will need to use this measurement ID. If you don't want to use Google Tag Manager and you prefer that your developer would handle the installation of Google Analytics 4, then instead you would need to go to View Tag Instructions. And then in the Install Manually section, you should copy this code, send it to your developer, and ask the developer to install this code in the head of the website. The developer will know what that means. If you want to learn more about how to work with GTag and how to send events, I will post some additional resources to the description of this video. But in this particular tutorial, I will be using Google Tag Manager, so it will be enough for me just to use this measurement ID. If you are completely new to Google Tag Manager, I have a tutorial about it for beginners, and I will post a link to it below the video. In that tutorial, you will learn how to create a Google Tag Manager container and also how to install it on a website. In a nutshell, once you go to tagmanager.google.com and you click on the container ID, it will show you two codes. So one should be added to the head of the site, and the other one, which is optional, should be added to the body of the website. So let's say that I have already asked a developer to install this code on my demo website right here. So that step is done. Now let's take a look at how to install Google Analytics 4. So I will close this window and then I will go to Tags, click New, Tag Configuration, and then select Google Analytics 4 configuration. Here I have to paste the measurement ID of my data stream. So let's go to Google Analytics 4 and click this copy button and click paste right here. Then set this tag to fire on all pages. So click the triggering and then select all pages. If you're operating in the region where there are some privacy regulations, for example, maybe you are in the European Union and GDPR is in place, you would then need to fire this tag only when consent is given. That kind of setup is much more complex. And if you want to learn more about that, I explain it in my Google Tag Manager course for beginners. Therefore, that topic goes out of scope of this tutorial for beginners. Now let's name this tag, and I usually name it GA4 config, and then click Save. Now let's test if this is installed properly. So I will click Preview, and then I will enter the URL of the website where I have installed my GTM container. Click Connect, and it will open your website either in a new tab or in a new window. And here you will see that the tag assistant is connected. Then I can go to another page just to see how this is working, because keep in mind that all pages in this case means all pages where Google Tag Manager is installed. Now I go back to the tag assistant, I click continue, and I see that there were two page loads. So one was here and the other one was on the next page. Here we have several events. To test if the configuration tag fired on all pages, we need to click on container loaded, and I see that the tag has fired. Also, if I expand here, I click on container loaded and I see that the tag has fired as well. Now let's see if this data is received by Google Analytics 4. Let's go to GA4, close the data stream settings, and here, while I am still in the admin panel, I should keep looking for debug view. And here I see events. Here is the first visit. Here is the page view. I can click it. and I can see some parameters that were sent together with the event. If I expand, for example, page location, I will see the URL of the page. Then if I go to the next page view and then click page location, I will see the URL of that page, which is matching the URL right here. So it looks like the main installation went well. So this is the most basic setup, and this will automatically track page views and other things that you have enabled in the enhanced measurement. Now let's take a look at how can we track an additional event. Let's say that I want to track these menu items, and every time someone clicks on the menu item, I want to track this as an event in GA4. So to do that, first in Google Tag Manager, I would need to go to Triggers, New, Trigger Configuration, and then select Just Links. For now, let's keep this as it is, because we just want to inspect what kind of data about the link can we use in Google Tag Manager. So I will name this All Link Clicks and click Save and click Preview. This will refresh the preview mode and fetch the latest configuration of the preview mode. Right now, when I'm in the preview mode, all these changes that I have are available only on my browser. The website visitors are still not getting these recent changes of the container. So now I will click, let's say, the first link, then the second link, then the third link, and then I go to the preview mode. And here I see several link clicks. So one of them is caused by the enhanced measurement of Google Analytics 4. The other one is caused by the all link clicks trigger in my Google Tag Manager container. Let's click the first one, then go to the data layer. So I expanded it, and here I see some data. To be able to use this kind of data, I need to enable click related variables. So let's go to Google Tag Manager, Variables, and then in the built-in variables section, I will click Configure. Here I will enable all click related variables. Then I close this and preview again. Now let's click the second link and let's say the third link. And here in the preview mode, I see link clicks again. Once I click on them and go to variables, I will see that all of them, at least on this website, have the same click classes value. And site navlink main in the context of my website means that this is the link click of the main navigation bar on the site. So this is the main navigation bar. Websites are coded differently, so in your case, the value might be different, or it might not have any value. In that case, there are more nuances, so if you want to learn about them more, then take a look at my Google Tag Manager courses. I will post links to them below the video. So in the context of this website, I could say that if someone clicks a link of which click class contains this, because again, the class remains the same on all clicks, I could say that this is a menu link click. That is why I can copy this value and go back to Google Tag Manager and update my link click trigger. So go to Triggers, click on the all link clicks trigger, and then click the pencil and switch to some link clicks. In this case, I am looking only for those link clicks where click classes contains this value. And then I will rename this link click menu and I will click Save. The next step is to create a tag that will send the link click event to Google Analytics 4, because we have things such as click text and click URL. I would like to send these as event parameters to Google Analytics 4. So in Google Tag Manager, go to Tags and click New. In the tag configuration, click Anywhere and then select GA4 event. Here, we need to select our existing GA4 configuration tag so that this event tag would inherit certain settings from the configuration tag, including measurement ID. And here in the event name, I can add any event that I want, but in this case, I recommend that you follow the naming convention of GA4, which is all lowercase and spaces are replaced with underscores. So menu link click. In this case, I came up with the event name. You can come up with your own. And then, as promised, we need to send some additional event parameters. What was the link text and link URL? Normally, I could use the supported parameters that are called link text and link URL. But in this case, I want to show you a concept of custom dimensions because you will need to use them a lot in other situations. That's why we are going to use some custom parameters that I will just come up on my own. So instead of link text, I will call this, let's say, menu link text. And then I can call this menu URL or something like that. Here as values, we can insert variables because those variables already collect values of links and they do that dynamically. So this time the link looked like this, while on the other click, the value was a bit different. So we can transfer this to Google Analytics 4. So to insert the variable, click the button here and select click text, because this will return the text of the link. And here, click the button and choose click URL. Then click anywhere on the triggering section and select the link click trigger that we recently created. Finally, let's name this tag. So I will call this GA4 event and then the name of the event. Click save. Let's test if this is working properly. So click preview to refresh the preview mode. And then I will click the second link, for example, the fifth link. And now let's go to the preview mode of Google Tag Manager. So on this link click, the tag fired. On this, it did not, but that is expected because this link click came not from Google Tag Manager trigger, but from enhanced measurement. So it is a bit confusing, but as long as our tag did not fire twice on the same link click, that is fine. Then here, the tag also fired. And now let's test if the data is properly received by Google Analytics 4. So let's go to Google Analytics. I'm still in the debug view. Now let's close this. And I was moved to the top of the stream. And here I have two menu link click events. So I can click the first one. And here I see menu link text, menu link URL. Now let's go to the second event. And the values are different. So this looks okay. And it looks like this was tracked properly. So after the next 24 hours, sometimes it might take even 48 hours, this event will start appearing in your reports. Don't expect this event to appear within several hours because GA4 needs more time to process the data. And these events, like menu link click, they will be visible in reports. And if you're using baseline reports, then the event will be available in engagement and events. Of course, right now, not enough time has passed, so this report is empty, but within the next 24, maybe 48 hours, the event will appear right here. If we look at the official demo property, the event report will look something like this, except that one of the items in this list will be menu link click. Now, let's not forget that together with the event, we sent two custom parameters, which are menu URL, I think, and menu link text. If you want to see them in the reports and you want to use them in the reports, you will need to register them as custom dimensions. So you will need to go to admin. Oh, actually not that property, this property. So I will need to click admin, then custom definitions, create custom dimensions. And here I will need to enter those parameters. So I will go to Google Tag Manager, to tags, and select that menu link click event. And here are those two parameters that I have to register. So I will click the first one, copy, and then paste it here. And I will give it a name, let's say menu link text. The scope must be event and click save. Now the next is menu URLs. So click again, create custom dimensions, and then copy this, paste it right here. And let's name this menu link URL. Again, scope is event and click save. To build a report where you can see what kind of links were clicked the most, and I mean menu link clicks, you would then again need to wait 24 or 48 hours. And one of the ways how you can build a report of menu link text, for example, would be an exploration. I explain other options as well in my Google Analytics 4 course. So let's go to explore, go to freeform. Or actually I could have selected blank because right now I need to remove these dimensions. And here in the dimensions section, I first would need to drag the event name to filters and narrow down this event to exactly matches. And then the event name must be this because in my report, I only want to include that particular event's data. So the filter will look something like this. Click apply, and then in the values, I would need to drag the event count. If you cannot find that metric, you will need to add it by clicking this plus icon. And finally, in the rows, I will need to add the new custom dimension. So I will click plus. and I will need to go to custom and select, for example, menu link URL and click import. And then I will need to drag it to rows. Right now, the report will show no data because, again, not enough time has passed, but after 24 hours or maybe 48 hours, this report would have worked and I would see a table where the first column is the list of all clicked menu link URLs, and then the second column would be the numbers of how many times was each link clicked. Even though Google Analytics can collect a lot of data, seeing that data and building the reports is quite a work, and it requires more time and more skills that you need to learn. So if you want to learn properly how to navigate Google Analytics 4, how to work with it, how to build reports, how to get insights out of your data, then you will need to spend much more time than this tutorial. And I dive deep into Google Analytics 4 in my GA4 course, and you will find a link to it below the video. So once you made sure that everything is working fine and your Google Tag Manager setup is properly functioning, the next step would be to publish this container so that these changes would go live to your website visitors. And you can do that by clicking submit, then giving this version a name, for example, installed GA4, then click publish. And from this moment, Google Analytics 4 will be installed on your website and it will start tracking your website visitors. And that's the end of this GA4 tutorial for beginners. Remember, this is just the very first step in your learning journey, and there are many other things waiting for you ahead. So if you're wondering what topics to learn next, here are 2 tips. Well, actually 3 tips. The first one is to learn event tracking, because that is the core of Google Analytics 4. The second topic is to learn how to see your data in Google Analytics 4 reports. That's where the knowledge of standard reports and explorations is a must. And if you are really serious about learning Google Analytics 4, you want to learn what is important to track, you want to properly plan your setup, you want to properly implement it, and most importantly, you want to get the value out of your data, then take a look at my full Google Analytics 4 course. I will post a link to it below the video. If you found this video useful, hit the thumbs up button below the video. That will help me understand what videos do you like and what should I create in the future. Also, if you want to learn more about Google Tag Manager or Google Analytics 4, then consider subscribing to this channel. My name is Julius, this is Analytics Mania, and I'll see you in the next video.